Hey everybody, it's Ed the Trainer, back again now to talk to you specifically about the Uniform State Test portion of the testing requirements. We've talked earlier about the Uniform State Test as combined with the federal component, but a lot of people are confused as to exactly what the Uniform State Test is comprised of. The Uniform State Test, again, is a one-test solution for several states' licensing requirements. And as I've mentioned before in other videos, the Uniform State Test takes the place of an individual state test for 20-plus states, an expanding number that will continue to rise as more and more states choose to adopt the UST. The confusion with the UST lies in the fact that these are supposed to be state tests being replaced by this one main test. So what exactly would be covered on a state test that covers so many states that it couldn't possibly be very specific? You see, if you've got a uniform state test that covers 20 plus, upwards of 30 states by the end of the year, how in the world could they ever ask you specific questions dealing with any one particular state's laws? They really can't. And if you've taken a peek at the NMLS's outline, content outline for the UST, you'll see it's broken down into four main areas. The first area talks about the state regulatory authority that's in charge of creating the rules for mortgage lending in that state and enforcing any violations of those rules. The second area of information for the UST is regulation definitions. The third area of information is license law and regulation, which really is just the area that is mostly the makeup of the test. It's the meat of the test. It's who needs a license, who doesn't need a license. If you do need a license, what do you need to do to go get it? What's the application procedure? Once you apply, what might be contained on your license application that would result in a denial? And if you do get approved for a license, what do you have to do to maintain that license? There's a lot of information involved there, but realistically, it's all spelled out for you in the SAFE Act. Because as far as the licensing concerns are laid out, it's a federal test that covers multiple states. So each individual state requirements really, they can't be covered in this test. These test questions about who needs a license, who doesn't, what's the requirement, what do you need to do to maintain, while they may differ state to state to state on an individual level, if you're testing on several states all at once, all they can really ask you about, guys, is the general requirements, the minimum requirements laid out by the SAFE Act. The fourth area of concern on that UST is prohibited conduct, required conduct, and advertising. As far as prohibited conduct goes, what can't you do? And a lot of that, if you peel back all of the layers, is you can't lie, cheat, or steal. Now, that may be a little bit of an oversimplification for many of you, but that's where it all winds up. As far as what your required conduct is, you've got to abide by the law. Again, for many of you that may seem like an oversimplification, but as far as required conduct goes, don't we all realize that we've got to do the right thing? And then in terms of advertising, again, it's a federal test covering multiple states, 20 plus, by the end of the year, upwards of 30, as more and more states take on the UST, adopt the UST. As far as advertising goes, while each state does indeed have its own advertising requirements, a broad test like this can only ask you about federal regulation. And the Truth in Lending Act is the law that covers advertising on a federal basis. And the Truth in Lending Act covers specifically the guidelines as to the type of language you can use. And one of the main aspects of it is you can't mislead or misrepresent. One of the other aspects is if you're going to offer a loan product, it's got to be available to somebody that's qualified. You can't bait and switch someone, right? You can't offer a 1% mortgage rate and have somebody come to your office and sit down at your desk and say, sorry, Mr. Smith, the last one at that rate just walked out, but let's talk about what we can do. Finally, as far as advertising goes, the idea of trigger terms in advertising, these types of terms that may be seen as features or benefits or something that is meant to induce someone to apply. TILA advertising requirements say that if you're going to tell me what's so great about the loan, using a trigger term, if you're going to tell me what's so great about the loan, you'd also better tell me the catch. Right? Don't tell me what's so fantastic about this thing without telling me what's going to get me in the end. And for most of us as consumers, when you see an ad or you hear an ad, in the backs of our minds, we're thinking, right, what's the catch? The TILA guidelines for advertisement just spells it out. And it says all this information relevant to that trigger has to be spelled out clearly and conspicuously so that it's not presented as fine print. Those are the 4 areas that make up the uniform state test. And if you're looking for some study information, you can reach out to me. I've got some resources that I can set you up with through some of the companies that I do a lot of work with that are very effective tools in helping to prepare for the UST. Hope that helps. If you need some information from me or you've got some questions, it's ed@edthetrainer.com, ed@edthetrainer.com, and we'll see you next time.